Okay, all right, you guys are supposed to be watching this if you missed any of the problems between 4 and 9. So you can just fast forward through it if you didn't miss 4, 5, or 6 and get to the ones that you did miss. Anyways, okay, for the first problem, you were supposed to be multiplying. You know you could have done this on your calculator. You could have just typed it in, but this is how you work it out. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times negative I is negative 3i. 3i times 2 is a positive 6i, and 3i times negative I is negative 3i squared. Many of you got to this point, and then you messed up here. When you get your like terms together, negative 3i plus 6i is just 3i. Many of you put it was negative 3i. Remember, I squared equals negative 1, so I told you guys just to change the sign in front. So it's 6 plus 3, not 6 minus 3, and 6 plus 3 is 9. So that was your answer for number 4. All right, for number 5, you were supposed to multiply by the conjugate. Well, a lot of you didn't even set it up right. It was 5 minus I over 5 minus I, and then you distribute. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times negative I is negative 3i. Negative 2i times 5 is negative 10i. Negative 2i times negative I is positive 2i squared. All over, and remember there's a shortcut for the bottom part. You just do, whenever you multiply a number times its conjugate, you just do first times first, last times last. So again, some of you got this far, and again you messed up on the simplifying. Well, negative 3i minus 10i is negative 13i, because a negative plus a negative is a negative. I squared is negative 1, change the sign in front, 15 minus 2 is 13. A lot of you thought this was 24. You thought 25 minus 1. But remember, that changes the sign, so it's really a plus 1, so it's 26. Now 13 will go into 13, and 13 will go into 26. So your final answer was 1 minus I over 2. Okay, for the next problem, when you distribute, you can only multiply the 2 times the 4 because they're not inside the square root, so that's 8. The square root of 3 times the square root of 6, I can't tell you how many people put it was 9. 3 times 6 is not 9. 3 times 6 is 18. Minus, okay, again, for this part, you can only do the 2 times the 8, and the square root of 3 just comes along for the ride, so to speak. So if you ended up with this, you lost a few points because you were supposed to break down the 18. So that gives you 3 square root of 2, but you already had an 8 out here, so you had to multiply that. So this was your final answer for number 6. Okay, for number 7, a lot of you at least took out the I, but you left it like this. Well, you can break down the 84. I just did it as 4 times 21. Let's just do it this way this time. If you take out the square root of 4, it's a 2. So you end up getting that the square root of 84 is 2 square root of 21. And you already had a 2i there. So 2i times 2 is 4i square root of 21. So that would have been your final answer. For number 8, you could have done it several ways, but I think the easiest way is just multiplying by, if it was a negative I, you would have multiplied by positive. But since it was positive, you multiply by negative. So that gives you a positive 3i on top and a negative 9i squared on the bottom. But again, remember, I squared is negative 1, so that changes. So you get 3i over 9, which reduces to I over 3. And finally, the last one, you could have typed in I 35 times on your calculator, or you could have just gone through the pattern. Remember, I1, negatives in the middle, and you could have just counted out. I just divide, and I say, okay, how many times does 4 go into 35? Well, it goes 8 times. You have a remainder of 3. So 1, 2, 3. So I know it's negative I. And that's the way I did that one. So if you missed any of these problems, 4 through 9, you're supposed to do the worksheet that I've posted on Blackboard. And you can just write the answers down.